A core trait of autism, according to the diagnostic criteria, is difficulty with social reciprocity. And this may involve not engaging in small talk, not showing interest in the other person or what they're sharing, engaging in a back and forth, uh, demonstrating consistent follow through in whatever they're sharing, not monopolizing the interaction and downloading on them about your interests and hyper-focusing on that to the exclusion of the other person and their interests. And some people argue that is just part and parcel with our unique neurotype and style of communication, and that there is nothing inherently wrong with it. And I would like to agree with that, except for one point. All human relations are based in some degree of reciprocity. And everybody wants to feel seen, heard, and validated in social interactions, regardless of neurotype. That's partly why we engage in them. It is an inherent expectation that the other person is going to hold a space for us. It's going to make us feel welcome, seen, heard, and validated. And as a neurodivergent, we might be naturally inclined to want to monologue, hyperfocus, go on tangents, ramble. And I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that, as long as it's paired with consideration for the other person and their needs in that social interaction. And it's hard for us to gauge their needs with our unique neurotype and when we're interacting across neurotypes with somebody like, for example, who's neurotypical, because we don't inherently function that way. It doesn't occur to us a lot of the time. And when I read The Complete Guide to Asperger's Syndrome by Tony Attwood, one of the things he notes is egocentricity. So you're not necessarily being egocentric and self-involved, but not having a perception of how your words or actions are going to impact the other person, or whether they actually share your interest and want to engage in whatever you're sharing. I know personally speaking, firsthand, I do struggle with that sometimes. It took me a long time to kind of assess and understand and develop a repertoire of things that I think people will want to talk about, and to also learn to kind of catch what they're pitching and throw back and treat it as a relay race, a back and forth, right? It took a lot of time to realize that. Do I still want to do all the things that are inherent with my neurotype? Yes, I certainly do. But for example, I had a work colleague who I learned was pregnant. We were sitting in the same room, and I know that small talk is kind of expected to, fluff people's egos, make everybody feel comfortable, build rapport. So I knew that this coworker was pregnant, and I said, hey, have you started your medical appointments? Because that was the thing that I was curious about. My autism curiosity kicked in. I was like, what's that process like? Because I don't know what it's like not being a parent. And she opened up and shared about it. But I prefaced it by saying, hey, you don't have to answer any of this if it's invasive. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable. I'm curious to learn a little bit more and how it's coming along for you. And we had enough of a relationship that wasn't an intrusion. She was comfortable sharing, and she felt I think, validated that I was showing that interest in her. And I felt like it was building a bridge between us. I think one of the challenges, I never know when it's appropriate to ask what question at any given time and how much I can ask, and then how to follow up with the right response to make them feel like I'm listening and not interrogating them. And I've since learned that I have to kind of pace myself, slow it down, ask at the beginning, preface it by saying, is it okay? Like, just, you don't have to answer this. I don't want to put you in a corner, because sometimes I can't anticipate if they're going to feel like that question's putting them in a corner or making them uncomfortable. So giving them an out is really important. Demonstrating an interest, following through, following up. And it can feel really rote, it can feel ritualistic or robotic, and it feels like we're doing this to appease other people. But again, the principle here is social reciprocity, making the other person feel like they count, like you care about them. And we would want the same in return. If we're monologuing or showing an interest or going on a tangent, that they give us grace and also demonstrate interest or follow through, and they reciprocate. And it feels like a tango, and we don't know the steps, and we're treading on our partner's toes, and it's uncomfortable, and it feels like shame-inducing. But I want to highlight here that even if it's rejection sensitivity triggering to not get it right, you can always try, and it's about building your repertoire of small talk, building confidence, comfort, and ease with that process, and learning that you're going to get things wrong, and mistakes are how you learn. And unfortunately, we tend to make a lot more mistakes before we start getting things right. And there's always the possibility that we encounter a situation for which we don't have any prior experience to go off, and we will make those mistakes, and people will be unforgiving. But for the most part, people, I believe, can be graceful if you handle yourself and comport yourself in a way that, you slow your pace down, you ask those exploratory questions, you demonstrate sensitivity, and you preface things. People tend to be a little bit more accommodating. And what are your thoughts about this? Do you feel like you hate having to do this dance, having to accommodate different ways of communication? Do you feel insincere, like you're having to mask? Does it feel draining having to do this? Do you get burnout, or do you shut down after those interactions because they're so overwhelming? Do you feel like it's shame-inducing to be expected to adjust and to practice this reciprocity principle and learn all these skills that were never handed to you and aren't inherent, and when you're not given an actual manual to do it? I would love to hear all about your experiences.